It is your prisonplanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here in this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. It is the vaunted, dreaded day. The day of the pole shift. The day of the planets aligning with the sun in a magnetic field set to trigger ultra-massive coronal ejections from the sun, fabled to vaporize the Earth. Nibiru, Planet X, death comets, Thundar the Barbarian-type destruction. Well, my friends, so far we're halfway or more globally into 2012. And soon we can leave this hoax behind. And I hope there aren't any mass suicides. I hope there aren't any mass killings in association with it. Because when you have the mainstream media, and that's who's pushed this, running around for decades saying that we probably have the end of the world. I mean, mainstream news saying that, giving it credence. I am surprised that we have not seen more bedlam. But I do have a report here. Some thought massive power outage in Annapolis marked the end of the world. Well, if you were on a respirator and the hospital didn't have backup power, it would be. And in about 3 to 4 weeks, if the power went off, the nuclear reactors would all melt down. There's 400 plus of those. So there's a lot of real threats we face, but no one ever seems to want to get focused and concerned about those. They're concerned about whatever the media hypes. Just like people still, most people will not swim in the ocean. They think Jaws is going to eat them because of the 1972 film. I know I beat that dead shark to death, but that's what this whole shooting hysteria is about. And I've got to say this. You know, the issue of our magazine that came out 3 weeks ago in late November, the December issue, This Man Wants Your Guns, and said he would use executive orders to do it, and the UN treaty, it wasn't hard to predict. People are like, wow, how'd you predict that? It's like predicting that a person that weighs 600 pounds is going to go pig out on ice cream. It's not a hard prediction. Or it's like predicting an alcoholic is going to, drink a bunch of alcohol, a non-reformed alcoholic or something. This is a no-brainer. And this morning, I happened to be going around on YouTube looking for news clips, and I ran into a National Democratic Party talk show host. I'm not even giving these people attention because they have such small audiences. And the person was admitting that, these pro-gun people that think there's a world government forming, they're dangerous, and people are listening to them, and, we're ignoring them, saying we've taken over, but really, that's just spin. These people are dangerous. We've got to get their guns now. And that's the thing. These globalists really think they're in charge, because for so long they just tell you, hey, this is the way it is, and then everybody just goes, oh, well, you're the authority. Absolutely. But watching this person, because it was video of the radio show, lecturing people about how there's no world government, there's no new world order, and no one wants your guns. In fact, that's the spin the last few years. Nobody wants your guns, but we are going to take them. No one wants your guns, but we are going to take them. And I'm like, listen, do you understand that I'm not in a trance like the general public? And more of the public's waking up out of the trance, and, you can sit there and, like a magician, can put somebody in a trance and tell them that a potato is an apple and they'll believe it. Listen, bud. Well, I mean, you see them on the news. Bloomberg, there's a new headline out saying no one's more pro-Second Amendment than him. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, the governor of New York is announcing that it's in the New York Times that they want to make you turn your guns in, but they'll pay you for them. Forced buybacks. My friends, we are blasting out worldwide, and it is the 21st day of December, 2012, and this day is already halfway past, or more in some parts of the world, already getting ready to go into December 22nd. By the grace of God, there has not been too much crime or hysteria taking place around the world. We'll be going over some of that news, but cross our fingers, say a prayer. I hope that people don't do anything crazy today, though people are always doing things that are crazy. Obviously, we had predicted it wasn't hard, that the Mayan prophecy, which really wasn't even a Mayan prophecy, that the world would end, was a fraud. And we, of course, predicted that. It was not hard to do. Though the globalists and many of their Illuminati writers, we did a special report on this last week that's online, titled 2012 Doomsday Secrets Revealed, that Terence McKenna and many others in the last 30, 40 years put out this idea, and they actually say it's the beginning of the Luciferian age, or as New Agers would call it, the age of Aquarius. So this is a very important date to the Illuminists. And they believe this is the kickoff of their big takeover. And you can notice they're moving very, very quickly on a lot of different fronts. Yeah, there it is. 2012 Doomsday Secrets Revealed Special Report. Just type that into your NSA two-way spy system, and it will come up for you there on Google. All right, ladies and gentlemen, David Icke, because, I mean, you got to have David Icke on 2012. He's been saying it's a fraud for decades. But he believes that by 2016, the New World Order will be reversed, that there will be a true awakening, and that this is a counterfeit awakening that they're pushing. And he's a very intelligent person. Doesn't mean I agree with everything he says, but he'll be on with us coming up in the second hour today. And then we will continue with open phones as well. Okay, let me just stop here for a moment and just read to you a few headlines. Communist Chinese government calls for Americans to be disarmed. We covered this at the end of the show yesterday. We're going to continue today because the story is just off the charts incredible, and people know it's amazing, and it's getting a lot of attention, which is good. We could use this to really destroy this big anti-Second Amendment push that's going on. The enemy's arrogance in saying that the Communist Chinese, the biggest owners of the private Federal Reserve debt, are now influencing our movies, our television, buying up our media, ordering films to not be released or re-edited like Red Dawn, the new release. That was postponed by almost 2 years. And telling Obama, do whatever it takes, there's quotes here, wage a war on the Second Amendment and use the massacre to get the guns. I mean, this is an authoritarian enemy, the #1 threat to what's left of the U.S., according to the Pentagon, and I agree, that has been basically set up as a globalist command base to leverage out the U.S., deindustrialize us, and then bring this nation finally down to its knees. And the CFR and others have pushed it as the Chinese century, 21st century. It's not the Chinese century, it's the New World Order, leveraging the Chinese people as a military and economic mercenary system, leverage that slave block against the rest of the world, bringing in slavery worldwide. And I'm going to break that down today. It's very, very important. And explain how the globalists are playing the U.S. and China off against each other. They want the nations to be degraded, the people to be poor. We have everything in common with the Chinese people and the Russian people and the people of Europe and the people of Latin America. It's the globalist using a worldwide corporate system of playing what's left of the nation states off against each other to bring in their world government. So I will be explaining some of that coming up. It's of the paramount importance. But first off, let me show you some Second Amendment news here that is just, again, absolutely off the charts. the Secret Service is here? Well, bring them in here. Bring them in here or I need a live mic, okay? I mean, if they want me, they can come in here. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the first time the Secret Service has been here. Just nobody talk to them. They got to come in here if they want to talk. Or they can go get a warrant or whatever they want. Anyways, getting back to what I was saying, the globalists are scared right now because they know that you're aware of their program. And New York governor, gun confiscation, and forced buyback, an option. And they're saying, oh, it's no big deal. You have a right to guns. We're going to ban them and make you turn them in, but we'll pay you for them. So that's being announced. Cuomo in the New York Times. Our article breaking it down is on drudgereport.com. And here's the article. Cuomo says he'll outline gun proposals next month. The proposal is, yeah, we may just ban your guns and make you turn them in. Okay, so we've got that information. Also, we've now put out a petition at the White House, Infowars.com has, to sign a petition to deport Piers Morgan for his attack on the Constitution. The Secret Service here? We'll bring them in here. Get them some chairs right here. Usually when they show up, we don't show video of it. So everybody's like, oh, yeah, I bet the Secret Service showed up. Until later, it's in the news or whatever, the FBI. Anyways, we're broadcasting live here. It's probably over some idiot on a message board or something. What do you guys need? Come on in. What do you need? Oh, I'm broadcasting live. If you're here, what's going on? Is it are you have questions for us, or are you wanting? Are you the awesome? Well, I'm on the air. What am I? I mean, I'm on like 140 stations and XM and everything. Well, the Secret Service is here, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Talk about radio cliffhangers here. Well, at least come in here and show the cameras you're here, Secret Service, so they'll say I'm not. Can I have the guy's card? Do that. Can I have the card, Rob? It's always nice to have a visit by the federal government. Oh, boy. Secret Service guys that come over here are always pretty nice. The FBI people, though, one time were asking me, what's that poster of Obama on the wall? And I'm like, what's it say? It's a film. Anyways, I got a lot of news to cover, obviously, here today. We're going to break in about 3 minutes, then I can go out and talk to the Secret Service. Can I have his card? See, that's why I'm saying, guys, we need to be able to wire in. Well, wait, you have a camera out there. You guys have a camera. Rotate it over there. You've got a camera out there. Oh, he left? Okay, well, I'm not going to have time. Here's the deal. This is our longest break of the hour. It's 4 minutes long. By the time I go find him in the building, I'm going to have to get back on air, whatever the Secret Service is here for. There's never any end to any of this, I tell you. Well, I forgot we do have a camera mounted out there. Yeah, what we'll do is when we come back, we'll play the piece Rob Dew and Darren McBrain put together, the Federal Reserve's message the Federal Reserve's message to Americans on Christmas. So we'll come on a break, play the bumper, play that, and they'll give me an extra minute. It's a really good piece they put together just yesterday in about 30 minutes. Very talented crew here. But again, Cuomo says he's pro-Second Amendment. That means you have a right to have all your guns taken New York City style. That's in what the Associated Press. We also, again, have now Cuomo saying, hey, let's just ban everybody's guns and have them turn them in. We'll give you money. But at the same time, no one wants your guns. Remember, that's a conspiracy theory, ladies and gentlemen, because Obama is a really, really nice person who's running all these predator drone attacks, killing people all over the world and signing the death orders. So we're going to go to break here in a moment. I get to find out what's going on with the Secret Service. We could go out to break right here with the message from the Federal Reserve. Do you have that queued up? Let's go ahead and go out to break with that. Here it is, folks. The message
and now, a special Christmas message from the Federal Reserve. This Christmas, the Federal Reserve would like to wish all of our slaves a very merry quantitative easing 4. Our current chair, Ben Bernanke, has perfected the art of giving money to foreign banks for many years, as seen in this rare home movie. Ben is currently giving these banks $85 billion per month. Excellent work, Ben. Once again, this is the Federal Reserve, wishing you and yours a very merry quantitative easing 4, and we hope to destroy your economy in the new year.
we even got it on video. I don't have any personal beef with the individual Secret Service people, but they left saying, we'll just come back with a subpoena, and wouldn't tell us basically what it was about. Totally ridiculous. You guys just come back at 2 o'clock, or you can waste your time and get a subpoena. We've had those before. I'm sure it's going to be, let me just guess, an idiot commenter, I bet money, on planetinfowars.com or on Infowars.com. And I've tried to tell you trolls this. If you go on there and threaten somebody, I don't know what it's about yet. I mean, I'm going to love it if they're here asking me about what I think about Obama as some intimidation. That is, lets me know I'm really starting to get to them. That could be it, too. But, you know, 4 years ago, they were here asking, well, what's this about the Obama deception? And that was in March, 3 days before it was supposed to come out. And I'm like, aren't you here about something else? Well, that was FBI. I'm sure it was routine because I just saw the whole bearing guy with a clipboard, the rest of it. So I'll try to find out what it is. Not a radio stunt, folks. I assure you the Secret Service was just standing right there at that door. I said, come on in. The guy just literally smiled at me, turned red, and left. He didn't really look mad, but some of the crew said he was a little mad. You guys ambushed me. No, I want to talk to Alex Jones. And they said, okay, he's in here on air. And he just didn't hear that or didn't. And then he was all kind of grumpy at Dew. And Dew said, he was like, well, you ambushed me. And Dew's sitting there, barely got any sleep last night from the Christmas party, hair sticking up, and looks at him, Dew said, and went, you asked for Alex Jones. You didn't know he was on the radio. No, I don't know that. So, again, you can come over here at 2 o'clock for whatever it's about. Or, well, I mean, first he said, get off air. And then I can't just get off air to go talk to you. Of course, I think he may also then got upset and left when everybody pulled cameras on him. I think that's what irritated him. I mean, whatever, man. You got the NSA reading all our email illegally. I mean, give me a break. Give me a break. Quit acting like it's a big deal to be on camera. You got all us on camera and all the rest of it. Okay, folks, we're in the middle of 2012. So I guess we have marked December 21st, 2012 with something interesting, the Secret Service here at the office. And we are also marking 2012, and I feel like I'm being stabbed in the stomach with a bayonet right now. So that's an interesting thing. I hope I'm not getting the flu or something. But we are going to continue here on air today with all of the news. And you really should call your friends and your family and have them tune into the radio broadcast, whether you're listening on XM or AM and FM stations or the internet at Infowars.com or watching video streams at prisonplanet.tv. You should share your prisonplanet.tv passcode with family so they can tune in and see the video as well, because this is a pretty big deal, what's going on right now. I mean, to say that is really not even covering 1/10 of what we're facing. The New York governor says that they're looking at gun confiscation through a forced gun buyback. And they say, well, look, yeah, we're going to make you turn them in and we're going to pay you. And it looks like that's what Obama's task force is going to be calling for, because that's what Biden has called for in the past when he's not giving speeches. In fact, yesterday we had this clip. I never got to it. Kurt Nimmo's article on it was called Biden's Beretta. And it's a video clip of Biden 4 years ago on the campaign trail saying, we'll never come after your guns, I promise. It's ridiculous. You won't get my Beretta, which is an assault weapon, semi-auto. That's what they classify it as. And you'll never get my shotguns. Well, they want to ban most shotguns. Most of them are semi-auto. And the ATF officially saying they want to physically make you turn those in. Ban gun show, private sales, giving your grandson a rifle, ban junior shooting groups. And then once everything's registered, then they confiscate them. And that's the path they follow in every country. And they are now saying, well, we'll just skip all that. And we'll, adverse possession. We'll just order you to turn those guns in. And then they can just, wait till you leave work. This is how it'll go, folks. If they ever pick me up and set me up, send me off to a FEMA camp or whatever, it'll be out on the highway. Because I'm as predictable as a Swiss watch, and they know that. Following you with your little GPS-tracked phones and all the rest of it. They just pull you over, say you resist, blow your head off. I mean, in Houston, they've got so many CIA on their police force. When they want to kill CIA in Houston, they've done this on the news. You've seen it. They just get the guy out of the car, pull the gun out, shoot him right in the head. Remember that Carney guy? And Wayne Madsen went down there and confirmed it was a hit. And they just, on the news, get the guy out of his car, stands there, put the gun to his head, kill him right in front of everybody. So, that's how they'll take me out. Or plant drugs on me or something like that. Some of the stuff they ship in. All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to break down exactly what's happening here on this planet. There is a global corporate crime syndicate above all the major nations of the world. They are taking over just a few final countries that the New World Order hasn't been able to destroy. They're taking them over militarily. Doesn't mean those countries are good either. They're usually run by crooks. Most governments, as history and our founders teach us, are run by crooks. And the more subservient the people, the more enslaved, the more crazy the elites get. Because criminals then compete with each other in the power structure, and so the very worst gets into control. If good people are involved in society, then you have a virtuous and successful and wealthy system. But then the children always become decadent. Their children become corrupt and evil. Their children become satanic. Everything collapses. So there is the problem with a wealthy nation, is that we had so much freedom, we became the wealthiest people in the world. 4% of the population, half the wealth. And now, even though we're a shadow of our former selves, people have just incrementally learned how to carry a greater and greater weight on their back. And the globalists are getting ready to bring in total Agenda 21, double and triple our power prices, sign us on to unlimited trillions of dollars of foreign debt that's not ours. And having us armed is going to be incompatible with the getting rid of juries, getting rid of grand juries, doubling, tripling the prison population. We already have the biggest in the world. Surveilling everyone openly, disappearing people forever that film the police. They already want life in prison in Illinois for filming the police. They want to be able to do full, cavity searches on the side of the highway with their whole arm, not just their fingers. They want to fully, absolutely dominate you. That's the criminal instinct. When you know you've committed all these crimes and you know you're sitting on top of Tiger, you want to go ahead and get that Tiger tied down, so you can then go ahead and slit that tiger's throat. They've stolen the world through fraud. Now they see us as like weevils in the pantry that have gotten into the wheat or gotten into the grain. And we need to be exterminated. And so that's why they have this arrogant attitude where they talk to us like we're children. They talk to us from their fake authority, and we're supposed to just grovel and be in complete fear. And we now sing the song, The Creed of Slaves. Now, the general public's rebellious with their neighbors or their bosses or with themselves, but they're not rebellious with the establishment. They see uniforms, they see black armored vehicles, they see the body armor, the helicopters. It is a religious sacrament, an icon, a relic now to fall to your knees and worship and grovel in fear, while saying you live in a free country. You're scared of the government and afraid they'll disappear you, but you're in a free government in a free country, and you're a conspiracy theorist if you warn people and say we're in grave danger. Of course, you know what the founders said. There is liberty when the government fears the people. There is tyranny when the people fear the government. And I always see emails and comments going, that's not the founders, that's V for Vendetta. No, that's art imitating life. The founders all said that over and over again. In fact, it's a Thomas Jefferson quote. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson. You may have heard of him. One of our founders, one of our presidents, I believe one of the greatest intellectual minds of all time. From my perspective, because I've read his writings. I agree with him. I like him. I want to see a Thomas Jefferson-style world, not a 1984 Stalinistic world. That's what 1984 is based on, as a high-level British intelligence officer who also served as a frontline communist commissar in the Spanish Civil War. pre-World War II. And he'd also served as an imperial police officer and a lot of other issues. That's why George Orwell, Eric Blair, was so uniquely suited to be able to really write about what a Soviet tyranny would look like in England. Well, that's why when you read 1984, so much of it is what we're now going into. You're like, man, how did he guess all this? He didn't guess it. He took what he learned and seen firsthand in India, in France, in Spain, in Russia, in England. All right, side issue. Let me document cam some of these articles here for you. New York gun confiscation and forced buyback an option. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, and they're just putting out the trial balloon. Remember his daddy, we got him on videotape with David Rockefeller at Bilderberg in 2006, says that the state of New York is serious about gun confiscation. The Democrat and former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development told the Albany radio station he plans to propose a package of draconian legislation during his State of the State address next month. Hey, guys, will you tell Kurt there's a typo right there, and this is linked on Drudge, just that right there. I meant to tell him about like 6 a.m. when this went up this morning, and then I never forgot to tell him. I just got caught doing other things. It goes on. And then these are quotes out of the New York Times article. We'll just proofread this on air. I don't think legitimate sportsmen are going to say, I need an assault weapon to go hunting. Cuomo said, according to the New York Times, there is a balance here. I understand the rights of gun owners. I understand the rights of hunters. Cuomo indicated the state will likely force some kind of permit process on owners of semi-automatic assault weapons. Same thing they did in New York City, and then they just stopped issuing the permits to guns, period. In addition to generating revenue and expanding the size and reach of government, the effort will also allow the state to confiscate the weapons of citizens who do not comply. Confiscation could be an option. Mandatory sale to the state could be an option. Permitting could be an option. Keep your gun, but permit it. Yeah, and they want you to come in and register it, then they confiscate it. It's like, we'll confiscate it if you don't register it, and then you're fool enough to come register it, and then they confiscate it. It follows the exact pattern throughout history. The Romans in what's Austria, what's Romania today, what's Switzerland today, what's Gaul, what was France today, Germania, what's Germany today, they would come in and say, because it took them hundreds of years to take the whole area over, it's the same story. They would have local scouts they'd hired who could interpret. They'd say, listen, completely give up, and we'll only kill all your men, and we'll let your women and children survive. We'll re-educate them. We'll put them in our households as slaves and make them, Romans basically down the road. Or we're going to kill everyone. And then other times they'd say, well, just show up here and turn all your swords in, and then we won't kill you. And then a lot of times they would come turn their swords in, and they wouldn't a lot of times kill them right away. They would then basically say, okay, well, now you've got to go stay in this barracks, in the stockade area where we can observe you. And then they would kind of have like a re-education camp where they had their spies and agents in there figuring out who the troublemakers were. See, re-education camps, the Romans developed them, and they developed those out of some systems the Greeks used in occupied areas they occupied thousands of years ago. So re-education camps are very, very old. That's why all of this is done over and over and over again. And so they always tell you, oh, just come register those. You can keep it after you pay a small fee and do a background check. And Laura did a background check to get these. Well, this is a new one where we decide if you can keep it. Just come on in with the guns and we won't SWAT team you. And then they're going to SWAT team people who don't come and register. They're going to go, well, we know you have guns because they were already registered with the NICS. They just want specifically what you got so you bring them in so they can take them on the spot. And then they'll know you've got the guns. They'll just SWAT team you, put it on the news, maybe kill some people at a few houses to scare everyone. Then the good old boys will all line up with their tails between their legs and come in and, here's my gun. The cops will be, all right, keeping our eye on you. Not going to give us any trouble about this. You understand we got to do this. And then they're all writing reports, quick reports, where they do boxes are checked off, seemed angry, seemed upset, seemed friendly, Well, though that's a sign you're a terrorist, and then now you're a terrorist. Even after you turn your guns in, you're always going to be a terrorist under Homeland Security. It was always for you. It was always for veterans, libertarians, conservatives. It was always for you. And see, now they're letting you know. They're saying it. You're in the Klan if you own a gun. You're a racist. You're a murderer. You're a terrorist. You're a bad man. And you're being taught how you're the bad man. So this article is up at Infowars.com, and in the State of the State address, he is set to say, any guns that aren't registered with us, we've got to authorize it now and then basically confiscate them from that point. And that is directly out of an article in the New York Times. Cuomo says he'll outlaw gun proposal next month. And Nemo, who wrote this article at 4 a.m., did a great job. The reason I know is I got up at 5:30, went to Infowars.com. That's my problem. Even if I stay up till 1 in the morning, I get up at like 5:30. Turning into an old man, I get up earlier and earlier. And I noticed Nemo had just posted an article at like 5:30 in the morning, and I called him. And he said, yeah, I couldn't sleep. And I said, wow, good find, because this was just buried in WGDJ AM. They have the audio up there. And buried in the New York Times, like a little footnote. Oh, there's a little proposal he's going to have. We're going to confiscate him and pay you back for him. Because the way he says it is, well, we could just confiscate him outright and pay you for him, or maybe some people could keep him but register, and then we'll confiscate him later. You know, it's no big deal. Okay, I want to get into communist China and break down what we're facing with them. But first, here's something that you can really send a message with. And to a great extent, it is symbolic, but it's very, very important. Signed petition to deport Piers Morgan for his attack on the Constitution, also by Kurt Nemo. Infowars.com has posted a petition on the White House website calling for British citizen an enemy of the Constitution. Boy, that's putting it lightly. And the Bill of Rights, Piers Morgan, to be deported. And this is a guy that came out and said, I am a British supremacist. I have invaded you. I have dominated you. I have taken you over. In fact, Kurt's so nice, he didn't even add that in here. I think we should add why we're doing this. You know, where he says, I have invaded. I have taken you over. I will get your guns. The British are superior. We are retaking you over. I mean, again, this is to demoralize us, to just condition us, where the communist Chinese are saying, hey, we're going to take your guns. Russian TV is saying, take our guns. Dr. Paul Craig Roberts was blown away when this happened to him when he was on RT a few days ago. Our globalist-run media, CNN, it's not really our media, MSNBC, it's also foreign. It's not really state-run media. You can say that to a certain extent. It's foreign government, foreign bank-directed. It's foreign-run media, foreign corporatist-run media. But also, our government is that, so it's running the media, so it is. We have an occupied government that then runs a state-run media. Okay, continuing here. Morgan Democrats in Congress, the Obama administration, are trying to outlaw all semi-automatic weapons, firearms, and mischaracterizing as military weapons are full automatic. If Morgan and the Democrats in the Congress and the White House are successful, the government will outlaw and eventually confiscate all semi-automatic firearms. Oh, they're not even stopping there. Obama said in his second debate, he said, oh, and handguns too. See Melissa Milton's article on Morgan's treasonous behavior here, and Kurt does link to it, but people need to see the images of those tweets where he said, I will get your guns, I am dominating you, there's nothing you'll do. And again, he doesn't do that from a point of arrogance. You think he's arrogant. It's meant to break your will. Just like TSA sticking their hands down your pants or dragging your kid off to a private perv room or pulling your wife and daughter over and ramming their hands into them with no due process, no judge, no jury, no probable cause, and the state police saying, well, that's reasonable. We say it's reasonable. Reasonable says oath or affirmation with witnesses with a sworn out oath and the person's places and things to be searched. That's what's reasonable. Not, oh, I'm going to have your wife bend over here on the side of the road and I mean the woman literally, you know, pushes with force and the whole woman moves as she rams her hand into her. And then the woman had to go to the doctor. It hurt her. I mean, no kidding. It's just brutalizing us like animals. Total domination is the name of the game. Of course, you just tuned in. I'm talking about The state police now are saying it's going to be their, well, they say it's policy to ram their hands into your body. Okay, and we're not supposed to get upset about that because the country's so free. And the Communist Chinese are the biggest owner of our debts, and they're now saying to Obama, you will get their guns. You will, I have quotes here, wage a war on your gun owners. This is a country with forced abortions at the Apple factories and suicide nets where they've aborted 50+ million baby girls so they don't have enough women for their men. I mean, this is just the most authoritarian country in the world telling us what to do. Our petition calls for the feds to deport Morgan because he is engaged in treason. He is engaged in sedition. He is engaged in espionage. And great job, Kurt, but I think I'd like to add that he's not even a U.S. citizen, so it can't really be treason. Though I agree, it could still be called treason because he's here. But, I mean, it's espionage against the Republic. It's espionage. It is agitating in an attempted overthrow of our Bill of Rights and Constitution to deliver us into absolute despotism. Here is the petition text. But treason's good because the public will understand what that means. Deport British citizen Piers Morgan for attacking the Second Amendment. And you can read the petition, very short and sweet, at Infowars.com, link through to whitehouse.gov. And again, these petitions are there so the globalists can call for gun confiscations and things and claim that it has support for the people. But that's not the real context of what's going on here and what's happening here. We just use the petition process to get media attention to show how illegitimate these people are and make sure that they don't just use the petition system for themselves. So, again, that is all up at Infowars.com and prisonplanet.com right now. Sign petition to deport Piers Morgan for his attack on the Constitution. And I didn't tweet that this morning. Paul Watson does stuff on my Twitter. It's real Alex Jones. But if we haven't, can we retweet that and ask people to go sign the petition? Let's get a few 100,000 petitions in there to tell the redcoat usurper who's here declaring that we are his slaves, and he's declared he's here conquering us. Let's deport him to England, where he potentially could be facing criminal charges for phone hacking and other yellow journalism, illegal activities in England. I mean, I know the globalists love you here. The bankers brought you here as a mercenary against our republic, and we obviously should be boycotting CNN. I mean, it is just an absolute anti-American organ of evil. Fareed Zakaria, who also is a Bilderberg Group member and constantly calling for world government authoritarianism and to turn our guns in, he should leave our country immediately as well and go to North Korea, where I'm sure he can become a functionary in their government. He acts and behaves exactly like a literal incarnate demon. So that's some of that news. I want to come back after the break and get into the biggest news. The Communist Chinese, along with the Russians and other foreign media like CNN, it's not just state-run, are calling for our guns to be taken and for an all-out assault on gun owners. And, of course, we have the Weatherman hearings where they said they plan to bring in the Communist Chinese. All right, my friends, we are here back live on this 21st day of December 2012. And if you're watching on prisonplanet.tv, you may notice that I have a globe here, a modern world map globe of our planet that was supposed to end today because it was 2012, another mainstream media hyped operation. Now, I have an article here at Infowars.com that's also up at drudgereport.com on the left-hand side, next to an image of the president bowing to the Communist Chinese president. Communist Chinese government calls for Americans to be disarmed. Their official government outlet said that a war should be waged to get our guns. They use the term war, that no matter what the political cost, we must be disarmed. Now, you have to understand, Communist China was taken over by the colonial powers hundreds of years ago. Then the colonial powers defended China against the Japanese and their brutal attacks during World War II. And then in 1949, the CIA actually put Mao Zedong into power. That's now been declassified. The John Birch Society, was saying that back in the 50s and 60s and being laughed at from their sources, but it was all true. They have the sources. So China is teamed up with the globalist, not the United States, okay? The United States is just another vassal state of the corporatist who establish a world government of laws through the UN and through the nations, but they are exempt from it. The corporations are like the Vatican and the City of London within London, the corporate structure. And Israel is its own exempt kind of city-state, where it says it's not according to anybody's laws. This is the globalist model where these mega corporations have these zones and areas like Switzerland, again, that's exempt and sovereign. But no one else can be sovereign. You understand? China is not sovereign. The United States is not sovereign. Russia is not sovereign to a great extent. These globalist oligarch groups come in. Now, China and their 1,300,000,000 people, they have been used to leverage out the jobs here in the U.S. where no one can compete with forced abortions and suicide nets at the factories working for 5 cents an hour. Not even our prisoners for 25 cents an hour. Okay? And so that drives down the wages worldwide to reverse development and to reverse a better standard of living. They want to lower the standard. Okay? And so now China, we're told, is the biggest owner of our debt that the Federal Reserve has manipulated us into. And so what's happening is we're going into globalism now with the UN treaty with Russia, China, India, all these other countries calling for us to be disarmed in the treaty. And now that treaty's coming up. So now we're told by Piers Morgan from the country we got away from that ran its own global empire, but it wasn't the country, it was the City of London, in London, that ran that empire out of the first country they conquered, England, which they then conquered Scotland and Ireland with. Then they conquered most of Europe financially and militarily and through economics the rest of the world. The United States was a colony of these people and broke away from it. But now we're going back under it. That's what globalism is. And we've been maneuvered to be told China is our biggest owner and that we owe all this money to them. So now the authoritarians and all the foreigners, including RT, is now calling for our guns to be taken on Russia today. And Dr. Paul Craig Roberts is outraged by that and speaking out against it. And so am I. So you got Russian state-run media, Chinese state-run media, and some of this going into the U.S., lobbying for our guns to be taken because they can't have a world government if the U.S. and Switzerland is allowed to have guns, but everybody else has to turn theirs in. This is a global government. So it is being announced that the Chinese and Russians, who are just part of this global government, are demanding that the American people turn all their guns in. Governor of New York saying they're going to go for a forced gun buyback where you turn all your guns in and they disarm you and then pay you back. And again, they sell this like we're here petting our guns and obsessed with it. No, it's people that don't know about guns that get them and think it's some new powerful thing they've got. It's that historically, when systems disarm you, they can then accelerate your enslavement. So government is arming to the teeth against us while saying we should be disarmed. There's only a few countries they haven't taken the guns from. And yes, the United States has always been a violent culture. And now, because of guns proliferating even more, crime rates have gone down. We still have a high one globally, but not compared to some countries. England's more than doubled after they completely banned guns. And it was a pretty peaceful country before that. Somebody who could speak to that is David Icke. I really wanted to get him on, and I twisted his arm to come on because he's busy writing another book for 2012, December 21st. This is the vaunted day. We are in the middle of it. And he had said over a decade ago that it wasn't going to be, the end of the world event like they'd said. He's gone and even met with the Mayans and others, and none of their prophecies ever said this. So why have the globalists pushed this date? Well, they are saying it is the launch of their Luciferian era, which is a counterfeit to the true awakening that we do see happening. So everything they do is a counterfeit. And David believes the real awakening flashpoint or jump point is 2015, 2016 from what he's seeing. And I want him to talk about that today, but also the state of the world and what we're facing. We go to break here in a few minutes. David Icke of davidicke.com. Just had over 6,000 people attend a big historic event in London that made international attention. David, great to have you on with us.
Hello, Alex.
There's so much to talk about. You've heard some of my questions, but going out to break here, after we get into my questions, what are some of the things that are front and center with you today?
Well, I just think we're heading, Alex, to a point in the new year in 2013 when so many things are going to come together. We have a president now in a second term. He has no other election to win. We have this fiscal cliff, as they're talking about, and this obvious agenda to push on down the road of the Hunger Games. If people saw that movie, there was a few people absolutely staggeringly rich in a high-tech, top-of-the-range luxury capital, and the rest of the people who were feeding that wealth were actually in abject poverty and under beyond Orwellian levels of control. Now, you know, it was interesting to me because, you know, I follow symbolism a lot, and so-called coincidence that Suzanne Collins, who wrote the Hunger Game books, should be in living in that area of Sandy Hook. Same with the connections from that into the Dark Knight Rising movie. Where
and by the way, it's not just that they renamed it in the new Dark Knight to Sandy Hook. They mailed out to the media attack papers. For those that don't know, we'll talk about this when we come back. Attack papers, orders from Bain of strike points. And in the last one, that area named Sandy Hook was named Hinckley, the shooter of Reagan.
Well, you see, if we get really deep into this, Alex, it's all about the manipulation of the human subconscious mind, which then becomes the conscious mind's perception of reality.
I want to ask you that when we come back, because I don't want you to waste any of this now and then get cut off, David. But absolutely, they do put things in movies like Fox showed the World Trade Centers attacked by a jet hijacked by the government that used a drill to make NORAD stand down to blame the Afghans, the exact 9/11 scenario 6 months before. I want to ask you, David, from your deep research, why they do this. David Icke, straight ahead, davidicke.com. And we'll also talk about his new book that's out, but also the next one coming out. And say what you want about David. He is a trailblazer, and he means what he's saying, and he has really gotten a lot of people to get outside the matrix. And for that, we're eternally grateful to David Icke. I'm Alex Jones with Infowars.com. Who better to spend an hour with us on the vaunted December 21st, 2012 than David Icke? And David Icke joins us from England. He is a former champion goalie, BBC TV and sports national host, head of the Green Party, and now known as one of the, quote, biggest conspiracy theorists. Well, there's David Icke and myself. I mean, that's who people will talk about. And then there's, I mean, kind of, when it comes to radio, people like George Norrie. But, I mean, who are the mountains of, quote, conspiracy? There's only 3 or 4 people out there, and that's why it's important that those of us that are trying to get people to expand their horizons, to expand their awareness of what's going on in this universe outside the globalist artificial box or matrix, that's why it's important that we work together and not be divided. And that's why it's so important that we support the work that David Icke is doing, because the fruits of his work are only good. And, of course, Christ was quoted as saying, you judge a tree by its fruits, and David joins us now. David, first off, because obviously 2012 is more than half over in many time zones in the world. Thankfully, within 12 hours or so, it will be completely gone. What was behind, from your view, this hype put out by known Illuminati people like Terence McKenna and countless others in the 70s that this would be this new age or Luciferian time? And then how was that picked up by the media and made to be a doomsday scenario? Your view on that. And then I want to shift gears into Obama, the guns, but also the subconscious programming going on with people in a trance, and your research on how we can unlock people from the trance. Again, David Icke, thank you for joining us.
Okay, Alex. Well, I picked this Mayan 2012 story up a long time ago. I was doing a lot of traveling in America, and in the early days when I came to America in the 1990s, the early mid-1990s, the only people that would put me on, and that was in the smallest room at the end of the day, were like these whole life expos and stuff like that, and new age type stuff. And so I picked up the story there because there's 2 strands of this Mayan myth. One is that today is the end of the world. Well, we keep having ends of the world. And ends of the world, you know, they have many connotations in the subconscious. You know, one is about life being finite. One is about being little me and having no control over events. and you know, just being a pawn in the game with no power over it. Oh, will the end of the world come? And you know, everything else is got control except little me. And the other part of the other strand of the 2012 myth was that there was going to be some grand awakening on this day or around this day, which is closer to the way that I see things. But I just don't see a single day, and I don't see a single year. I think it's a progression. And since I started talking about this in 1990, 91, quite demonstrably, there has been a global awakening. It's not as big as we'd like it to be, because we always like it to be greater. But I was talking to someone last night. I mean, when I think of what I was dealing with in the early 1990s, mid-1990s, even late 1990s, in terms of public interest, public derision, public dismissal, and then you look at what you've got now, it's dreamland. I mean, we need to not get too caught in the, you know, the frustration that it's not greater, and lose the fact that how far we have come in this period in terms of awakening people to another view of self and the world, and world events on a scale that is unprecedented. So that's a good thing. But this whole idea of an awakening on a day or in a short period of time, I think it's always been a myth. And one of the things that happens when you create something into the so-called future, which is when it's all going to happen, and it's a kind of a new age equivalent, Alex, of waiting for the cavalry to come, because it's always, well, someone's going to come. I keep seeing this stuff about, you know, nice secret societies and the Far East and military groups in America that leave it to them. They've got it sorted. It's all holding position. Don't do anything. You don't need to, because it's all going to be sorted out for you.
Yeah, the White Knights, the Nasera group. I've been hearing that for 20 years, 17 years on air. And the globalists, Brzezinski and others, they are saying that there's a huge awakening and the globalists are in trouble, even in their internal documents. And so they want people, you know, to basically believe that they're powerless. But when we see this giant buildup of police state control, that is the system desperately trying to get humanity back on the reservation.
Yes, I've been saying this for years, Alex, that, you know, the prime reason for this massive imposition and escalation of the Orwellian state globally, it seems to be that they're trying to get more and more power. And of course, on one level they are, but it's more, as I've seen it and I've experienced it over the years, it's more an effort to hold on to the power they've already got. Because as the human mind awakens and expands its sense of the possible, which is what vastly awakening is, instead of, you know, living your life looking through the wrong end of a telescope and seeing everything as I can't, it's impossible, everything's limited, you start to expand your awareness of possibility. And when you do that, everything changes, not least on this level, Alex. If you're looking through the wrong end of a telescope at something like Sandy Hook, you will have no alternative to the official story, because you haven't got any alternative. If you expand your mind and you expand your awareness to the technique of problem reaction solution, of creating a problem to offer a solution to it, i.e. what's happening now with the attack on gun ownership, then you do have an alternative to the lie, and suddenly the lie is under challenge.
And let me just bring in one piece of evidence. We have a government and governments caught staging all these other assassinations and killings and Operation Gladio, hundreds of mass shootings and bombings in Europe to take liberties. They've done this before. They passed the 68 Gun Control Act on the backs of RFK, JFK, and MLK, which it's all come out in court, were murdered by elements of the government. The congressional hearings certified Kennedy was a conspiracy, but the mainstream media never reports that. And 90+% in polls know the government killed Kennedy now. So we've really won in many respects, but the establishment is still in control of the major command centers and is posing and acting like that we are the joke when they are really the joke. How long can that final domino stand?
Well, you know, it will stand as long as people stand for it. You know, in the end, it's about choice. And people in very, very large numbers have made that choice in recent times to open their minds to greater possibilities. What that process needs to do is continue, because what we need to open our minds to is a far, far greater story than it appears to be, even on the face of it, and even when you've opened to problem, reaction, solution, and manufactured gun attacks and manufactured terrorist events. Because what we're dealing with, Alex, is a force hidden from human sight that understands how reality operates, how we interact with it, and how we create it. And it has set up a society through its control of science, not least through funding and peer pressure and all the other stuff that goes on, and through the media and through what we bravely call education, which is keeping from people this understanding of reality that this force has. Thus, if you know how reality works and know how you can manipulate people to perceive the reality you want, and you keep that knowledge from the population, the target population, you're going to have the target population laughing, ridiculing, and dismissing people who stand up and say, this is how reality works and this is what the game is. Let me just explain this in terms of, and this will bring in lots of things, Alex. The Mayan stuff, it will bring in why they put stuff in Hollywood movies and television programs ahead of what they're seeking to create. You know, the reality that we're experiencing every day, people listening to this show now, is so not like we appear to be experiencing it. You stand and look into the night sky, and you'll see all those lights, all those planets and stars, and they talk about billions of light years and all this vast distance. What you are seeing exists in that form only in a few cubic centimeters at the back of your brain, where the brain decodes information in electrical form from or in to a illusory physical reality, which is actually holographic. So if you want to bring down this whole conspiracy, Alex, to its real bottom line, it is about what controls those few centimeters at the back of your brain. Because if they do, by programming your sense of reality, you will perceive and thus manifest in our individual and collective experience what they have programmed us to decode and manifest.
Exactly. They've proven that humans are builders, designers, creators, so they simply program us to then manufacture what they want.
Yes, and this goes much deeper than that for reasons that I'm going to come to, because this is a very, very interesting and vital area of information that we've got into here. And when you expand your mind and you go beyond mind into what I call consciousness, the greater sense of awareness, you're increasing every time you do that your power to control those few centimeters of the brain that are creating visual reality. And therefore, the programming gets harder and harder and harder to impose itself.
No, exactly. And then your mind starts to truly open up, and it is incredible, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with us. All right, this is a short segment, long segment coming up. I want to give the number out if you have a few short questions for David Icke. Kind of add a wild card element to things. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. I am your host, Alex Jones. David, shifting gears out of the brain and how the globalists are programming things, and the globalists themselves believe they're getting spiritual influence to do this, regardless of whether that's true or not. They believe it, and so it's not kooky. Whenever for 20 years you've been pointing this out, and more of it is being revealed. But expanding on this, you've been saying, I've been saying, clearly it's there. They're moving with using Al-Qaeda to attack countries while saying give our rights up or Al-Qaeda will kill us. Never before has their propaganda gotten thinner and more obvious, even for people that are not even very conscious. And is that being done on purpose? Why are they getting so sloppy? It's not just you and I and millions of others that are already awake that are seeing this. It's more and more people. I mean, I'm seeing the globalists move forward of their own inertia like a juggernaut, but they're on fire. They're burning down at the same time and moving ahead saying, we don't want your guns. We're just going to confiscate them. They're actually in the news saying that. I mean, they're moving forward with forced inoculations. They're moving forward. What's happening?
Well, you see, I've been saying for years, there's a kind of a race on, if you like. They've been aware that this awakening was coming, and therefore they've been preparing for it. And what we're seeing now is a race between them locking everything down to the point where there's no margin. See, this is why they want microchips. It's in the end, Alex, those few centimeters at the back of the brain are the key. Because the microchipping is about the external, and many other things too, but it's about the external manipulation of a sense of reality. And sense of reality becomes created reality by the brain. And so they're feeding us stuff in Hollywood movies, because, which is, I mean, people say, and it's a good question, you know, if you don't realize how this works, why are they telling us what they want and what's coming in Hollywood movies? Surely they don't want us to know, but they do. They do, because the more that they're feeding that information into the subconscious mind, the more that is becoming the future reality of the subconscious mind, which then becomes the manifest reality of the conscious mind. This is what it's like putting information into a computer and then pressing enter and it comes up on the screen.
How is it going for them, though? Because the predictive programming of, you know, every children's cartoon, Star Trek 35 years ago, being about a global, international, UN government, all of that preparation where the future's a dystopia where you have chips in your brain and you're not allowed to have children. And then that's what they then start building. Clearly, that's what Brave New World's all about. Huxley said that was there to condition us, and he was one of the insiders, as you know. How is it going for them?
Well, I think that, you know, if people read my books in real depth, they'll see a lot of background to the fact that this force, which is manifest in our reality through these bloodlines and, you know, these interbreeding so-called elite bloodlines and families, we do not depend upon them. They depend upon us. It's the relationship between humans and this force and their representatives in human form of the parasite to what it's parasiting off, the parasite to the host. Humanity is the host. These are the parasites. We can exist and prosper. My goodness me, we can prosper even more greater than we ever imagined currently without the parasite, but it can't exist without us. And so that energy, which is the parasite's life force, if you like, is low vibrational human emotion. All the emotions around fear and hatred and conflict and frustration and worry and terror. And thus, they have manipulated and constructed global society to create situations that constantly generate those energies. So you can look at Sandy Hook, but we're missing the point if we look at it only on one level. On one level, yes, it's about an excuse to take guns away because of the same reason that they stopped guns and ammunition being owned by Jewish people before they started rounding them up in Germany. Yeah, that's one level.
And on another level, it's going to be used to create copycats, more people shooting schools, because that's the feedback loop, conditioning people to go shoot up schools. This will undoubtedly cause more school shootings.
Yeah, that's another one. Another one is to create what? Emotional trauma collectively in the population, not just in America over Sandy Hook, although obviously much greater there. Because
stay there. We're talking about psychic vampires with David Icke. Stay with us. David Icke is our guest. We're going to take some of your phone calls coming up here. I wanted to get him on with us during the vaunted December 21st, 2012, but he wanted to finish up with his take on Sandy Hook. I don't cover this a lot, but I have definitely seen it over the years, that there were dozens and dozens and dozens, I was going to say hundreds, probably were hundreds, of different shows and FBI training manuals and other things where they talked about planes flying into the World Trade Center. And then Bush came out and said no one had ever heard of such a plan. Then there were drills of the CIA flying the exact same aircraft into the World Trade Center and Pentagon that day. That was in the back of the paper. Yeah, I mean, that's mainstream news. I made films on the subject showing the news articles and clips. We know there was a NORAD stand down. Well, 6 months before, on Fox Entertainment Television, the spinoff of the X-Files, The Lone Gunman, with Dean Haglund and others, who's been in studio here many times, 5, 6 times, over the years, after that event, the government hijacks a jet by remote control, claiming Arab terrorists are on it, to fly it in the World Trade Center. They use an anti-terrorism drill as the cover for the attack inside government, in case other parts of the government find out. That's how real terror attacks are bootlegged. To attack the World Trade Center, to then blame it on Afghanistan and invade. And there were countless other things. The brother of the Oklahoma governor at the time wrote a book that came out close to a year before Oklahoma City, where a Tom McVeigh bombs the federal building. And then it starts a huge roundup of right-wingers. This is the kind of stuff that just happens over and over again. And I know throughout history, the establishment likes to leave calling cards so they can brag to each other. That's kind of the surface. But Anton LaVey, I studied The Globalist. I studied some of what Aleister Crowley wrote. But I went back to stuff for 1,000 years old, 500 years old, Jewish mysticism, Babylonian mysticism, and looked, and it's all the same thing. And they believe, they call it lesser magic. That's what David Icke's talking about. If you do, it's what voodoo is, a model of somebody, and then you stab it, and then it makes them actually get hurt. And whether it's real or not, I don't believe in stuff like that, that it's actually the doll doing it. Something spiritual is happening, or something in a plane we don't understand, to put it, say, in layman's terms. You know, they know sixth sense is there. It's been scientifically proven. They know birds and things know days before a hurricane even forms or an earthquake. They have these cells in their brains that pick up magnetic information. They've proven humans have these. They know birds follow these magnetic lines. Well, then you find out all these cultures built temples on these lines. So the ancients know what we've now been hidden. And if you, Anton LaVey talks about it, it doesn't matter even if you don't believe in magic, you know, this stuff still works. Well, whatever the case is, whether it does or doesn't, they believe in it. So this is why, and I said Dark Knight Rises, I said it's going to cause mass shootings and stuff. I said that on air, on record, because I could see the programming just watching it. And then how they leaked the thing where Bain says the fire goes up and all that. I said this is calling for a revolution of violence to disarm us. Now, Bain, and Adon Salazar wrote an article about this. The company that put it out, and we're going to David, since he brings it up, I want to back him up here, sent out to key media and people a scroll that looks hand-drawn on the outside with orders from Bain to strike certain areas. And the strike point is Sandy Hook in fictional Gotham. Now, the same map was in the last one as a strike point, but the same area that was Sandy Hook was called Hinckley. And we're all freaked out because now we're finding there's names of lone assassins and things all over this. Now, that could be a coincidence, but when it's then the actual new assassin that happens, something really is going on here. Now, coincidence, yeah, 1 in a billion, 1 in a trillion. It's like they ran a drill of the exact same bus and exact same trains being bombed on the exact same time. Look this up. It's on BBC News on 7/7. Now, David, I'm going to shut up. You've got the floor on this subject. Then I want to get to some calls and some other issues.
Well, voodoo is very straightforward, and all this stuff is very straightforward. When you create a hologram in a studio, the information that creates the apparently three-dimensional form is in a waveform. And when you look at it, it looks like a fingerprint. It's just wavy lines. But you fire a laser at the wavy lines, and suddenly, and apparently, the best of them anyway, an apparently solid three-dimensional form appears miraculously in front of you. And, you know, we've seen holographics is being used more and more in stage shows and conferences and all this stuff, and on television. And so if you can get to the waveform level of everything, let's keep it simple and say, keep it simple, the electromagnetic field of everything, then you get through to the holographic projection. Therefore, voodoo is focusing the mind. The doll doesn't do anything. The doll is simply a focus of attention that represents the target. And by focusing attention on the doll, and what you're doing is you're focusing attention on the electrical magnetic field of the doll, you can connect that frequency-wise, vibrational-wise, to your target. They become, in effect, one field. So what you do to the doll then gets transferred to the target through the electromagnetic field. This is how it's done. And this is the level of awareness of reality that those behind those that we see as obvious orchestrators of this stuff, they're still artisans and oil rags if you can actually see them. That's what they are doing. And so the more that they can affect that field in terms of your emotional state, your perception state. See, with Sandy Hook, very, very quickly, one of the other expressions of this is that virtually every parent, after that happened, when they leave their children at school the next day, or the next day, and the next day, they're thinking, well, I see them again. Now, of course, on a statistical chance alone, I mean, it's so minute, it's unbelievable. But it's so big in their psyche and in their emotional traumatic reaction that it becomes a question of, will I see them again? And that is anxiety, which is constantly being generated into the field. A war, a pepper bombing a city is a massive injection of this emotional fear, anxiety, terror that these people feed off. And answering a question earlier, Alex, you know, how is it going for them? Imagine that to eat, to have sustenance, to survive, you had to have a target population or a target person acting in certain ways. Because if they don't, food source is finished. Well, that's a certain kind of panic. And when you start to see people in greater and greater numbers starting to awaken and act in ways that are denying that food source and are starting to see how it works, then that anxiety is increased and increased and increased. And what I'm seeing with this massive push from all directions, plus the fact that it's being done with almost so little cover now, that to me is absolute blind bloody panic. And therefore we need to keep the pressure on when they come to us and start trying to demonize us for standing up for things that they don't want. We just have to stand firm, because in the end, and this is what is being shown to be done, if we don't stand down and we keep putting this information out, the information is so powerful in its effect in the end. Why? Because it's true. And
well, I've seen this. I agree. I've seen this a million times when you're dealing with bad police. Not all police. They're trying to twist them, though. A lot of police are resisting it. When you're scared of government people, they feed and get more wound up and more crazy. When you laugh at them genuinely from a place of no fear or talk to them like they're children, they absolutely run.
They don't know what to do. Because they are in a mode, even those that are totally unaware, they're just a certain personality type, which the authorities love to recruit. They are a computer program, Alex. They're software. And a computer program reacts to programming. So its programming is, I have a uniform on, people are intimidated by me. I must be respected and obeyed because of what I am. And when you laugh in their face, because they're little boys in short trousers, really, you see these TSA people, you know, take your uniform off, mate. Where's your power? You know, your power's in your uniform, it's not in you. You know, go and get another job. Where's your power? Gone. It's in the uniform, which is just an extension of the state. It's like a uniform is like another electromagnetic field they put on themselves, and suddenly, oh, they're powerful now. Take it off. It's gone.
No, it is. It's all symbolism. It's all cloaks. I mean, they've done all the psychological studies where you put someone in a different outfit, they behave like the outfit.
Yeah, and it's like when you laugh at them, or you're not intimidated by them, or you give them the law that you know better than they do, they can't hack it. They just can't. They don't know what to do. And one of the ways that they do respond, because little boys in short trousers with brains the size of a pea have really, in many ways, only one way to react if they react at all, and that's they pull the bloody taser out. Because, you know, their perceived omnipotence and power is being challenged. No, this is why when you see extreme versions of these people, they'll pull someone over, a driver, and all the driver will say is, well, quote me the law that says you can do this. And out comes the taser and the guy's on the floor. It's because they're computer programs and they have nowhere to go in terms of treating a situation on its merits in the moment based on the information before them. That takes mind, consciousness, and a computer program cannot act that.
All right, I want to go to some calls here, David, but what do you see in 2013 with everything accelerating? What are you on the lookout for? What are you predicting?
Well, you know, we are in this race, as I symbolically call it, between two things. Is the awakening going to reach the point where the House of Cards comes down before the House of Cards is so cemented together that it's very, very difficult to bring it down? This is why they are panicking in trying to push this on as fast as possible. Because, you know, what we're seeing now is not something that is moving along at a consistent rate, a consistent speed, if you like. I mean, you've just indicated the speed that this Orwellian stuff is coming in all its forms. But the awakening of people is speeding up as well. And every time it speeds up, it's speeding up from a higher level of starting point because of the greater numbers of people who are already there. Now, let me use this as a analogy, because I think it's really apt. If you have a dam and it's holding back a body of water, that water can take a very, very long time to undermine the dam to the point where cracks start to appear and you actually see it's being undermined. But the time difference between the cracks appearing and the dam collapsing is very, very much shorter and narrower than it took to start the cracks in the first place. And what we are at now, I would suggest, in undermining this, exposing it, and bringing it to an end, is we're at the end of the beginning. We have had this long period where, from a starting point of zilch, in my case about 25-0 down in football terms, we have reached this point where there is incredible numbers of people are awakening on different levels to this compared with when it started out.
We've come from behind or now even.
Yeah, now we're at the point symbolically in this analogy I'm using, Alex, where we can see the cracks in the dam. Now we need to push on and not think that it's going to take the same period again that we've been through to have the same effect. No, the effect is going to get quicker and quicker and quicker in shorter amounts of time.
And everyone can feel it and see it. Here's the problem. The empire is going to strike back. So how do we attack even stronger with the truth to overshoot their next attack so that we jump to the point that's not within their next target grid? How do we out-jump them?
Well, we become conscious. We move our point of, I mean, this may sound trite. I couldn't care less, because it's actually true. If we get caught in hating these people, if we get caught in physically, violently fighting them, then we are playing in their stadium. You see, if you want to feed off human emotional energy of violence and fear and terror and what have you, then when what you've done to generate that. Let me give you an example. What they've done in Greece to generate that incredible emotional trauma that the Greek people are going through, then it's even better if they react with violence to your endeavors, what you've done to them, because now you've got twice the energy being generated. They don't mind if we fight them as long as it's not in too greater numbers. They don't mind that. It's lunch. But what we need to do is not fight them, not get pulled into their stadium.
Oh, no, I agree. They want to start a civil war in the United States between these, quote, security services and the population. And instead, we need to go out with the information and wake up the programs and turn them back into humans. We need to be reaching out aggressively to wake up their minions because they're victims of the Matrix as well.
The thing is, we need not to play in the stadium of violence and stuff that we're talking about, because that's their stadium. That's what they want. We need to play this awakening, transformation out in the stadium in which it's actually coming from, which is human perception of reality. And this is why it's so important when we put this information out about what the plan is and what the agenda is that they want to introduce, that we do never give the impression that it's a done deal and it's going to happen. It's just information to alert people to what's wanted so we can stop what's wanted happening. And we have the power to do that. I mean,
no, I agree, but we have to wake them up to the 3 senses level of manipulation first so they know it's a lie, so we can then show them the next phase of what is the truth.
Well, that's why throughout my time of doing this, in my books and talks and whenever I've talked about it, I've also always done the both, because I think one without the other is an imbalance. You know, if we don't do it, this is why, you know, people, oh, don't talk to me about the conspiracy, it's negative. No. Understanding, knowledge is never negative. Ignorance is negative, and that's not about ignoring or not wanting to hear negative stuff. That's about escapism from what's really going on.
All right, we've only got 2 short segments left with David. We're going to take your phone call straight ahead with David Icke. Well, it's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Alex Jones here, back live. Joining us from England, David Icke joins us, and here we are on this globe spinning through space. It's supposedly the end of the world right now, but it's not. Again, they will always want you to think it's the end of the world. They mean the end of the world for you, the end of the world for you controlling your own destiny or believing you can affect the world around you. The social engineers want you to sit down and just implode. I want to take some of these calls that are holding for David Icke, but David, you said you have a quote for us.
Yeah, just one thing I quickly wanted to say, Alex. When I was just before the break, I was talking about, you know, the spiritual, so-called spiritual stuff, or don't talk about the negative conspiracy. That's an imbalance. But if we talk about only the 5 sense level of the conspiracy and not the deeper levels of the nature of reality from which that 5 sense level can be understood from a much greater understanding, that's an imbalance as well. Now, this is a quote by George Carlin, the great George Carlin, who said this: "Did you ever stop to think about all the people we kill? They're always the people who tell us to live together in harmony and try to love one another. Gandhi, Lincoln, Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, Medgar Evans, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, John Lennon. They all said, try to live together peacefully. Bam, right in the head. Apparently we're not ready for that. Well, we are ready for that, George. It's that which is manipulating society doesn't want us to be ready for that, because that means that the life force on which they feed is removed. And that's why the massively at the heart of this revolution is to start to love each other and care for each other. Not in a, oh, I love you, and you know, that stuff, and that kind of version of love, but a true love, which is, you know, more the love that you see in friendship, unconditional love, and love in its true sense stands and will not move and will not budge, because love in its true sense will always do what it knows to be right, with consequences not even considered, because anything that could be considered not doing what you know to be right is simply not in the psyche of love in its true sense. This is the power that will bring this down.
Well, David, then there's the counterfeit of Obama running drone attacks everywhere, and then he says the answer is love. There's also always the counterfeit as well, where they say, be loving, turn your guns into us, we come in peace.
Oh, Alex, I mean, I don't know how long we've got here, but I mean, I could talk about this. You've talked twice here about counterfeiting, and you've talked about deceit, right? Well, you know, there is an area of research that I've been pulling together for some time, and that is common themes. I always find it very compelling when I see very different peoples and very different sources coming to the same conclusions and talking about the same things. And there is a force which is described in precisely the same way by ancient Gnostics, they call them the Archons, by the pre-Islamic Arabians, and Islam picked it up, the jinn. They call them in Central America the flyers. The Christians call them the demons, and so on and so forth. And when you look at what he said about these, let's look at what the Gnostic writings from 2,000 years ago say about these archons, that they are they're energetic beings, but with a mentality that's robot-like and what we would call computer-like. They do not have the ability for what the Gnostics called intentionality, what I will translate as creative imagination. It's like you try to get a computer to create something, you can't. You have to put in the information to create through it. It can't do it scratch. And so we humans have creative imagination. Thus, to create the world that they want, which is this Orwellian nightmare, and then some, they have to get us to use our creative imagination to create it. And that's why they're programming constantly.
Stay there. This is important. Calls coming up. Okay, we'll cover all the latest 2012 news, get into the unprecedented. I mean, I can't believe I'm here calmly talking about mainstream news, governors saying we're just going to make you turn all your guns in and we'll give you money for them. That's Cuomo in New York. I mean, these people are really making their move. And again, they don't need to really convince everybody to turn their guns in. They need to convince us that other people were convinced, so it's somehow okay in a democracy instead of a republic. Now, David's going to stay with us 20 more minutes so we can take your calls, and I appreciate that. He wants to finish the point he was just getting at when I mentioned the term counterfeit. Continue.
Yeah. So I'll use the instance of this force that these Gnostic writings of 2,000 years ago called the Archons. But in saying that, this is what is said by these others too. So we have a real common theme here across different religions and different cultures and different times. And let's look at what they say about the Archons. First of all, they can be described, the Gnostics said, in one word: deceivers. Their method of manipulation is deception. They are mind parasites, and they parasite off human energy, and they parasite off the human mind and manipulate the human mind. This is the Christian, perception of possession, which is true. These things exist. These energetic fields, energetic entities, they lock into people at the electromagnetic field level, and then start dictating through that the perceptions and the behavior of the possessed person. They talk about the Gnostics that the Archons are able to create something that they call HAL, H-A-L, which translates as, wait for it, virtual realities. They have the ability to make people see things that aren't actually there. How do they do that? By manipulating the way that people construct reality in the few cubic centimeters at the back of the brain. That's how. And this is the other thing that has been mentioned already today. And another thing on the real top list of what the Archons do and how they do it is they invert everything. they turn everything on its head. So when Obama talks about love, he's talking about hate. You've got to turn everything they say upside down to see what they're saying. This is why Satanists, who in their rituals are worshipping and interacting with these archontic entities, invert everything. They invert the cross. They invert the pentagram.
They're turning women into men and men into non-entities. Everything is turned upside down.
Is why this is the force, and these hybrid bloodlines, which is why these families and elite families and bloodlines are so obsessed with bloodline, have a hybrid genetics, i.e. a hybrid energetic field, which is much closer to the energetic field of these archontic entities.
And by the way, whether that was true or not, all over their writings, as you know, David, even BBC articles, the elite believe they are a separate species. They say this.
A separate species because they have been specifically created on the body level to be energetically, vibrationally, frequency-wise, closely connected to these archontic entities that operate outside of human sight, so that the possession of these bloodlines is able to be far more powerful and total than it is of the general population, although it happens with the general population as well, as we know. So when you're looking at the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the British royal family and all these people, you are looking at these archontic entities incarnated in you.
It'd be like if I had a remote control robot, or when they send the Mars rover to Mars, it's being run from Houston.
No empathy, they have no conscience, and that they are running this whole society to bring about an end of total human control. And those vast majority of people, because there's, compared with 7 billion, these people, these bloodlines are so few. The vast majority of people who are bringing it in for
Stay there, we gotta go to breaks. David Icke. Final segment with David Icke. Take a few calls as promised. And then I will get into the unbelievable news breaking today at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Drudge Report is carrying 2 of the articles. In fact, I want to raise this now for David. David, what do you make of the Communist Chinese official government with quotes like, "It is time to have a war against your gun owners. It is time to take all the guns." The Russian media is saying do that. This new UN treaty, I mean, global government is out in the open, and then they have these weirdo fake liberal, who are just really monstrous eugenicists, talk show hosts come out and say there's no world government. I mean, we've now reached a point where the government admits in the New York Times they run Al-Qaeda to make father's suicide bomb or they'll kill their family. And they say, isn't that good? And isn't it good the CIA is torturing people, including children? And then separately, we got to search you, though, because Al-Qaeda might be hiding in your pants at the airport. And then they're like, oh, yeah, the Communist Chinese own our debt, and they said we've got to turn our guns in. I mean, it really is getting over the top now. And what is that where they announce world government in hundreds of newspapers, but then if you talk about it, the Southern Poverty Law Center and ADL say you must be a terrorist. I mean, what is this propaganda? This is propaganda I would design, David, to wake people up against me. But instead, it actually works on people.
Yeah, there's a few things in there. First of all, there's one thing telling people almost in a subconscious way that, yes, we want world government, because most people don't actually focus on the facts. They get an image of something. But there's another thing on alerting the conscious mind to it. And you see, when it's in newspapers and it's there and the massive stuff and world government, oh yeah, whatever, what else is going on today? But when you focus it, as you know, people like we do and many others like us around the world, when you focus it and say, hey, look, here's the facts, they want world government, that's different, because that's talking directly to the conscious mind. It's alerting the conscious mind to it, and then people can start to see it and put the stuff together. But if it stays in the subconscious mind as some kind of just part of the maze of information that people receive all the time, then it could just pass them by.
David, I got to say this. You really are amazing, because there's really no one else I talk to that really gets it. That was my answer. And that's exactly what I know they're doing. They have a background noise of world government. Yeah, we're going to, sterilize you. Yeah, cancer viruses and the vaccine. Yeah, they gave 60-something thousand kids polio in India, Bill Gates Foundation. But it's just kind of buried like it's no big deal. They put this incredible stuff in there like it's not a problem. Yeah, the CIA tortures kids in front of their parents. It's to fight the terrorists. Exactly. It's meant to subconsciously just be peppered in there. But when we connect the dots and say this is really bad, they go, oh, you crazy man. There's no world government. I mean, what you just said, the way you crystallized it, that is exactly it. They are targeting the unconscious mass.
Yeah, and the thing is that when you are in a situation, the word you've just mentioned, and there may be some background noise, if you're concentrating on what you're doing, you might not hear it. And then suddenly someone will say to you, hey, can you hear that background noise? And you stop and you listen. Oh, yeah. Now, from that moment on, you can't really concentrate because all you can hear is background noise because the conscious mind's been alerted to it, and thus now it's hearing what it couldn't hear before. And this is what this information is doing. And in terms of Russia and China, this is, again, very straightforward. I've just been talking about this archontic force. Which possesses people. This is the force that is, the Christians call demons and all the rest of it, that is behind all this. And it doesn't just possess people in America, in the White House. It does it in the Kremlin. It does it in Downing Street. It does it in Westminster. It does it in the Chinese.
And again, even if you don't believe in God, the devil, spiritualism, the point is, if you look how the bankers are set up, they're playing all the countries off against each other while exempting themselves from their very rules. And that's why it's the globalists running China, Russia, and the U.S., and Iran, and Israel, running us all into each other because the goal is hurt humanity, dumb people down, don't let children ever develop into their intelligence, hold humanity back. So even if it isn't physically real, it doesn't matter. Whatever this dark force is manifesting to destroy and hold back humanity.
All these people, Alex, running all these major countries of the world, most of the countries of the world, maybe even all of them, but certainly the vast majority, with maybe one or two exceptions, but these people, China, Russia, played off against America and Europe and NATO and the Cold War and what's going on now. They're all on the same team. This is what the penny needs to drop. And interestingly, you've just mentioned something else, the banking system. Well, one of the things that is a common theme of these Archon, Jinn, et cetera, is that they are parasites. They parasite off the energy and efforts and creative imagination.
The devil is never a maker.
No, no. So what have I just described? I've just described the banking system. The banking system creates nothing. It feeds off the creative imagination and energy of the population. That's
here's an example. Just like you said, it's like YouTube. It doesn't create anything itself. You go make it. You go put your content on it, and then it acts like you've got a favor to even be there when it's totally parasitic.
Yes, and look at Facebook. It's demanding joint copyright of anything you post. That is the parasiting of human creative energy. Archontic. This is the key to understanding it all.
Wait, I'll go further. They're now saying they actually own it, some of them, and you don't have rights to you.
It's classic. I mean, that's just another version of the banking system.
It's unbelievable, David. And again, I remember first reading one of your books like 18 years ago. I think it was your first book. And my cousin, Buckley Hammond, said, you got to read this. This guy knows what's going on. My cousin is just really, really intelligent. And I read it and I said, well, some of this is true, but this guy's a lunatic. And I said a few things like that 17 years ago on the air, and I've apologized. Doesn't mean none of us are right about everything, but I know that you're really onto something. And because I'm hearing about all this occultism and all this stuff. I mean, when I snuck into Bohemian Grove 12 years ago, I was still so naive. I thought when Channel 4 paid me to sneak in because they were too scared to do it because I'd snuck into some military bases, so they thought, well, you'll sneak into this. And I thought it was all made up. I didn't think elites were really devil worshiping. Really, yeah. 12 years ago, David, I didn't even know that. So, and then I've done research since then and found out whether it's real or not. Every one of these stinking high-level elites believes they are communicating at Skull and Bones and everywhere else with fallen angels. And
that's another name that's given to them. Yes, absolutely. That's another of their many aliases.
But that's what I'm saying. Folks, on record, the elite, they really do believe in this, whether it's real or not. You could say that from a psychological perspective, they are manifesting this idea in their mind, and then they're building it in the real world. But it doesn't matter either way. It's happening. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is real. It is true. And what they're doing, you see, we talk about the extreme rituals of Satanism, where they directly interact with these entities and they create energetic fields that allow these entities to slip through into our reality. I've talked to endless people around the world who've seen it. But in the secret society rituals, let's take the Freemasons. These rituals are not there just for a laugh. They're there because they create a certain energetic field that allows possession to take place more powerfully. Now, vast majority of people that enter the Freemasons and enter the secret society network at the lower levels have no clue, and they're not consciously part of this. They're not. They might use it for a bit of stuff in, good business and stitching up something in the town or whatever, but they don't know the big picture. But the rituals, do this and do that. Oh, no, it's just ancient rituals. We're just keeping the tradition going and all that stuff. No, the reason they're doing the same rituals now that they were doing thousands of years ago is because the rituals work in doing what the outcome is designed to be, which is to increase the possession of people. And the more people become possessed, especially if they're in politics and stuff like that, the more the occultic entities are dictating and dominating their behavior and decisions. And this is why you get people who may genuinely come into politics. You see it all over the world. I've seen it in England, who genuinely want to make a difference, and they come into it, and then you see them transform into everything and more that they came in, they said they wanted to come in to challenge, because the energy's got them. And this is what's happening. And this is why these people work as one unit. Pedophilia is about using the pedophile to draw off the life force of the prepubescent child, because these occultic entities want that energy more than anything else. That's why you find pedophilia absolutely rife, along with Satanism, in these elite bloodlines. It's all the same bottom line if you research it.
And now look how, you said a decade ago that Savelle was doing this from your BBC contacts because you worked there, and now it's all mainstream news, and he's best buddies, with the royal family, and they're constantly finding dead bodies of kids and women on the royal estates, and it's just always swept under the rug.
The royal family are practicing Satanists. I don't, apart from knocking on Buckingham Palace and saying it face to face, I couldn't have said it more often in more places in this country. They are practicing Satanists. They are child.
What does the Bible say? It says that the royalty of the earth, that the devil's going to give them the power, that's their minions.
See, this is it, Alex. Why are they royal families? They talk about having the divine right to rule. What is the divine right to rule from their perspective? It is their genetics. It is DNA. That's why we have a woman who's the head of state and the real power, top of the power structure in this country, who is there only because of her bloodline. And the Eastern establishment families of the United States are the same bloodlines, as are the European aristocracy and their richer and elite and corporate elite. They are the same bloodline. It's just that somewhere a crown and humanity reached a point where they weren't going to have that, or most of them weren't. So they moved from crowns and coronets into dark suits, and that's the only thing that's changed. But they're the same bloodline, and the reason they are called royal bloodlines is because of this hybrid bloodline, which makes them different to the rest of the population genetically, and thus, if you look through ancient accounts of these people, whether it's the emperors of China or whatever, they talk about they are special because they are descended and are genetically connected to what they perceive as the gods. It's not the divine as most people perceive divine. No, quite demonstrably, it is their gods that they worship, this occultic force. That's where they say that they are connected to, and that's why they say they have the right to rule.
Let's take a few calls here. I'm skipping this network break, then we're going to come back after David leaves us and cover nothing but news. Let's talk to TJ calling in from Minnesota, listening on WWCR Shortwave. Go ahead, TJ.
Alex Emery and David Icke By God, I thought my Christmas was smashed to pieces when my Beagle Hound died on 10 December. But now I get to talk to David Icke. And if there was ever a man of 2 or 3 centuries, his name just happens to be David Icke in my humble...
Well, you're on the air with him right now. You're on with Von Helsing right now. Go ahead.
I've only got one of your videos, David. It's the one, your Oxford dissertation.
Right.
How does David Icke explain flesh and blood over illusion and what is illusory? Because illusion is illusory, and I think you do believe in flesh and blood. We got 3 Englishmen talking here right now. We got a Jones. I'm not going to give you my last name, and I.
Okay. Well, let him answer that question, brother. Sorry about your dog. Dogs are certainly sweet, good little creatures. David, comment on that.
Well, on my website is the full event from the Wembley Arena just a few weeks ago. And in the first 2.5 hours of what is a 10.5-hour, 11-hour event, I explain all this stuff in great detail about the nature of reality, because to understand that is then to understand the world. What we live in is not a flesh and blood reality. It appears to be. It's a holographic reality. It's an illusory reality. And this is not just me saying this. If you look at quantum physics, and I'll give you another quick example. I've been saying for a long time now, amazing as it may seem, that actually we living in the equivalent of a virtual reality computer program. And that we are being fed artificial information into the decoding sectors of the mind, the brain, and we are decoding this fake reality. Now, all these years later, a science team at the University of Bonn in Germany has come out and said, we think this is what it is. And they are building a version of the universe to prove it. And what they say that actually when you look at the laws of physics that we believe in, it actually makes sense from those laws of physics that actually we are in some kind of advanced computer program. And so the world is so not like we think it is. And it's so important that while we deal, yes, with the 5 sense level of it, we need to do that. That's what we're interacting with all the time.
Sure, we got to jump to other calls. Great points. We got to...
From the bigger picture to fully understand it.
Well, I mean, just look at the planet. Third rock out from the sun, a tiny, thin atmosphere, about as thin as the skin of an apple, of oxygen that we can even breathe. I mean, we are already in the middle of a fantastic existence, and 7 billion people living on this globe are mainly getting the reality off of an artificial television that can twist and spin things. And if you look at the messages, it's so destructive, so much of it, and it is bent towards negativity and ugliness. And I've always seen it from the perspective to make us weak, because if we see beauty and love and honor, that has been shown to bring us into higher levels of just basic IQ, so that you're then aware of larger horizons. But as David is...
Two things very quickly, Alex. You know, one of the other things that they say about the archons in these Gnostic writings, it's that they are about creating ugliness.
Yes.
And look at it. You're right.
You're right. Ugliness everywhere. Let's go to Scott in Florida. Wants to ask David Icke about Satan worship. Go ahead, Scott.
Hey, I've actually been on hold for a little bit, so I kind of changed the subject of my question. Right. David Icke, I'm a huge fan. I've read your book since I was 16 years old. I'm 22 now. So let me just make these quick points, and I'll take my answers off the air. One,
okay.
What advice exactly would you suggest to the average, not the average person, because I know we're not average people, but what advice would you suggest to, just for lack of a better term, the average person to kind of let his peers or whatever remember exactly where humanity comes from, and get that and reach that point of reconnected awareness with the true self, because we all know love does not abandon. And another thing is the fact that what can we do to become active? For instance, Facebook. I mean, I want to move beyond Facebook, but I've created a Facebook page, which I don't want to say the name, but it reaches about almost a million people.
Well, that's fantastic. Can you tell us your question for David? I just asked for quick questions.
Pretty much, what advice would you suggest to the average person to reconnect humanity with their awareness. And also, I just wanted to know if you were familiar with the products of longevity and stuff like that, because I'm aware that you actually suffered with rheumatoid arthritis a couple of years ago. And I know a lot of people like Joel Wallach and Ben.
Yeah, a lot of that can be mineral or vitamin deficiencies. Yeah, I should send David some of that. David, in there, what's the easiest way to snap somebody out of their trance?
Well, it depends on the person, really. I mean, all you can do is put information in front of people in the simplest way, non-aggressively, not trying to convince them, just another version of reality to look at. And then they make of it what they will. It's as simple as that. But from a personal point of view, the key for me is to stop having your point of self-identity as your name, your job, your life history. That's your experience, right? That's your experience for a 70 years and 10 or whatever it is, within a tiny frequency band called visible light. That is not you. That's your experience. You are infinite awareness having that experience. When you move your, I know this from personal and the experience of many other people. When you move your point of observation of self from I am, Fred Jones to I am infinite awareness having an experience as Fred Jones, you then become in this world in terms of your interacting with it, physically, for want of a word, but you're not of this world in terms of the point of observation.
Well, exactly, but to give people
everything changes then, Alex. Everything changes. Everything shifts.
But to give people something simple... Sure, David.
Your sense of personal power absolutely explodes when you do that.
Well, and that's the big horizon, just on a basic level. A lot of times when you tell somebody or give somebody some info, they're not going to wake up on the spot. It's like David said, where the dam doesn't even have cracks yet, but it's going to collapse. You've just got to try to wake folks up and move on and not even worry about so much the pre-programming you get back. That's just because they're victimized. They've been programmed. Don't let that get to you. Don't receive that information. Give them your info like they're a patient and move on to the next person. Jay in Florida has a David Icke 2012 question. Got to move quick, brother. Go ahead.
Hi. I think that last thing, as time moves on, more and more people are going to really wake up anyway, because of all the things that are really happening. It's really coming out in the open. But really, for David Icke, do you think that this 2012 thing, I see it so much on TV, this 2012 thing, it's so in our faces. They want us to think that the world is ending, or either that, or they want
and you notice they're doing it in concert with the Sandy Hook thing, which has been made a global hysteria. It's the idea, the end of your children being safe, only government will keep them safe. It's all coordinated. Go ahead, David.
Well, yeah, very quickly on the Sandy Hook thing, this is a quick aside, but I think it's an important one. Satanism is actually Saturnism. One of the key things they do is they worship the planet. Actually, it's a dwarf sun called Saturn. And in ancient Rome, they in the period running up to what we call Christmas, they had Saturnalia, which was the worship of their god Saturn, just as the Greeks worship the god Saturn as the god Kronos. And it's in this symbolically obsessed, subconscious manipulation obsessed arena that these people work in. It's absolutely no accident that yesterday NASA released a grotesquely dark image of Saturn, saying it was to celebrate the holiday of 2012, which is what to them it's the Saturnalia holiday of 2012, and of course this period we're moving into, Alex, now, and we're actually moving now towards Christmas, is one of the great Satanism.
Of course it is. David Icke, amazing. All right, finishing up with David Icke and going back to the news on, well, what we predicted coming true. They're announcing that they want to physically confiscate the firearms and pay you back for them. And the NRA is not even really making a big deal out of that. We're in a lot of trouble. But it has to get bad before it gets better. They are really moving in with authoritarianism. They're not going to have roadside proctology exams and let you still have guns. I mean, so many freedoms are already completely gone. They've got to get rid of the rest. And but David, you were finishing up your point. Yes, I saw.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think it would be nice just quickly, given the subjects we've been talking about, if I made a few very, very quick connections regarding Christmas and one or two other things that just to show how deep this goes. And all these things are there to program the subconscious without us realizing it. First of all, the god of Saturn in ancient Greece was called Kronos. Kronos is for the word from which we eventually get crown in terms of royalty. The Kronos was depicted as an old man with a long white beard holding a scythe and holding the sands of time, because he was also the Greek god of time. This is why the Kronos, the Saturn god of Greece, is what we call Old Father Time, who's an old man with a long white beard holding a scythe. And the other expression of this is the Grim Reaper, which is the Saturn is the planet, I would say the sun of death, the Grim Reaper holding the scythe. And so you have the long white beard. And so you go to Santa Claus with the long white beard. You go to the way God is depicted with a long white beard sitting on a cloud or whatever, the Charlton Heston version. And then you go to the Matrix, and you go to the person who created the Matrix, who was known in the Matrix as the architect, who had a white beard. And the Freemasons call their God the Grand Architect, and the Gnostics called what they call the Demiurge, the leader, their version of Satan, the devil, the leader of the archons, they called him the Grand or Great Architect. It's all connected and talking to our subconscious all the time. But the point is this, very important. Once you bring this knowledge to the conscious mind, to the awareness of the conscious mind, it loses its impact. This is why when you show someone a subliminal advertisement and they can't see it, and then you point out where the subliminals are, every time they see that advert from that point on, the subliminals they couldn't see are the first things they see, because the conscious mind's been made aware of them. And that's what we're doing with this information. I hope you have a great holiday, Alex, and it's been great talking to you.
Well, I know this. They've certainly taken and laid counterfeits over the entire Bible, and we know that the December 25th is not the date of Christ's birth, any of that. And we know the church steeples are a phallic symbol, all of it. And there we are teaching our children that Santa Claus is real. They arrested a man last month in Canada who was out telling children that, and their parents, that Santa Claus wasn't real. And it just shows that we are all taught to live and believe the myths that the media and the government push and counterfeits, twisted counterfeits, to cover up the truth. David Icke, thank you so much for the time. Great interview, and look forward to speaking to you in the new year and talking about your new book when it comes out.
Okay, mate. Thanks very much. Have a good one.
You too. There goes David Icke. Powerful interview. We're going to go to some more of your phone calls, but David had to go. I mean, I see stuff like some of the questions up there, best way to wake people up, psychic vampires, David Icke solutions. Then we've got David Icke, NRA, with Ron from New York. We'll get to all of you. Obviously, I am very thankful so far that there's not a bunch of disasters or craziness that has gone on. There have been some mass arrests in China that the authoritarian governments use to go after people's liberties. There have been power outages in the U.S. The people panic and think it's the end of the world. But overall, there's still 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, depending on which time zone you're in, for bad things to happen. But this is looking good. And again, I never said it was going to be a big disaster. I was worried about crazy responses, though. And it's good so far that that's not happening. The Mayan apocalypse, as it didn't happen, is the London Telegraph headline that Drudge has linked up at the top of drudgereport.com. We've also got Wayne LaPierre, Hollywood media, music, violent videos cause culture of violence. I think that's overall good. But he calls for armed guards in every school. That's not good, turning the schools into prisons. And so-called journalist, anti-gunner, globalist operative, Seethe. Now again, these will be federal police in there. We need local. And that almost gives into the fear, though, because it's statistically, your child is dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times. Has a better chance of being killed in a car wreck or drowning or falling over, hitting their head in the shower or bathtub than they do dying from a gunshot. But because of this perception, something obviously needs to be done. just so they don't push false solutions. But, you know, more mental health's run by a bunch of globalists that have caused a lot of this with their serotonin reuptake inhibitors and other drugs, not linked, proven to cause psychotic breaks. So that'll make it worse. I'm not getting on an NRA bashing fest here. It's just let the NRA know, no, we don't need more school psychiatrists. We don't need more people putting kids on drugs. That all started since the 70s with the drugging of the kids. I mean, that's an absolute cause and effect, open and shut, on the drug inserts. And as for armed guards, yeah, how about you just let, you know, key people that are vetted and tested, because you do need some background with that because there's so many weirdos in education now, but then have some people there with concealed carry. And stop advertising schools as the place to go. Shoot everybody. Bloomberg is out saying that he's always defended the Second Amendment. He says, defend Second Amendment as much as I have. That's a quote. No one has defended it as much as he has. This is a man who says all guns should be banned on record, and they are in New York City. And now Cuomo says gun confiscation and forced buyback are an option. That's the big news. Up at drudgereport.com on the right-hand side, all the NRA news. And what's happening is right there. But if you go to Infowars.com, you can see the article, New York Governor, gun confiscation and forced buyback an option. And then it links to the New York Times. And then he's quoted by a local radio station where he said that. You can go to the radio station and find the interview right there on the site. Before I go to your calls, I want to air this amazing little 1-minute piece put together by our own Darren McBreen and Rob Dew. That is up at Infowars.com that you should circulate out to everybody. I'm also, at the next break, going to send this out on my Twitter, Real Alex Jones, a Christmas message from the private Federal Reserve. Here it is.
And now, a special Christmas message from the Federal Reserve. This Christmas, the Federal Reserve would like to wish all of our slaves a very merry quantitative easing 4. Our current chair, Ben Bernanke, has perfected the art of giving money to foreign banks for many years, as seen in this rare home movie. Ben is currently giving these banks $85 billion per month. Excellent work, Ben. Once again, this is the Federal Reserve, wishing you and yours a very merry quantitative easing 4, and we hope to destroy your economy in the new year.
And again, that's buried on Infowars.com. I'm going to ask the guys to post that in the featured news area. You can also find it on our YouTube channel and at prisonplanet.tv. You know, I'm being pretty calm about this, to have the Russian government, the Russian media, and the official communist Chinese media saying Americans should have all their guns taken. The People's official government press outlet put out yesterday calling, you can go read the quotes, for a war on American guns. And the communists took the guns of the few that had it and killed between 40 and 80 million people. Nobody really knows. CIA says it's 64 million. The Chinese say he killed 80 million just Mao alone. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And the most authoritarian government on earth that's been used by the globalists to deindustrialize our country. So the globalists are teamed up with the corrupt elites of China against the Chinese people and the American people. And they just mow down crowds of people there as they're taking their farms and property and sending them to the cities to basically starve to death. It is just unprecedented. Former Congressman Bob Barr, NRA board member, called for a congressional investigation of this. And I put out a hard-hitting video that's linked at the bottom of the article, that's linked in red at Infowars.com. Communist Chinese government calls for Americans to be disarmed, where I link to Dr. Paul Craig Roberts' article about how he went on RT. And RT was funded by hundreds of millions of dollars of Russian government money. And, you know, I've gone on Iranian TV, British TV, French TV, Japanese TV many times, Brazilian TV. I mean, if it's Skype and easy or satellite and quick, I'll do it. I'm so busy nowadays, I don't even really go on U.S. television when they call me, just because half the time they cancel you by the time you get there and you talk for 2 minutes. I mean, it's pretty much pointless. But RT, you know, has interviewed me many times and do little 5-10 minute interviews, but I could actually just say whatever I wanted to, because I was told by multiple people that worked there that the director of RT America, I haven't checked if they've changed who it is, but I would suspect they had, was anti-New World Order and was a listener. And you saw the libertarians and constitutionalists on there. It was wild. RT America has gotten rid of most of the Patriot people they had on it. And now whenever I see it, it's guns are bad, turn them in, open borders are good, world government's good. It's really gotten creepy. So there's definitely been a change up there. I haven't had time to investigate what the changes are. Really, they would have me on about once a week on average, and I was happy to do it. Not a big audience domestically, but still quick and easy on Skype, and I would do it. They haven't had me on in 6-8 months. And so there's a definite change there, and I put out a video, saying I don't like the fact that we've got a foreign government-funded entity calling for our guns to be taken here in the U.S. And Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, who's gone on RT, and when it's exposing drones killing people or exposing secret arrest or torture, that's a good thing, and I will use any venue to get the word out on that. But it doesn't so much report on that now as it does how much I should be a slave. And so I want to tell Piers Morgan of England, nothing against the British people, but he's a big, swollen, authoritarian punk who has a tiny audience, less than Larry King. He's a total failure, but he tries to make up for it with just dripping arrogance, that we do have a petition out just to get the word out that Kurt Nimmo put up on the whitehouse.gov that you can go to Infowars.com and link through to the White House, and a call for him to be deported. And I say for sedition. And a foreigner over here trying to manipulate our domestic operations. Nobody would ever put up with that in the past. That's what this globalism's about. Obama serving as the UN head of the Security Council violates Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. Our military being told NATO and the UN give Obama orders and that Congress can sit down and shut up. All of this globalism, the Chinese and the UN treaty saying they're going to tell us. I mean, that isn't rhetoric. We're now going under Chinese and Russian control in the treaty, and they're saying, yeah, take the American people's guns. I mean, that is just so off the charts, so incredible, that if people don't get really upset and angry, they will just intensify it. I mean, they are really testing us right now to see what we'll put up with. And so to Piers Morgan, who was run out of England, and to RT of Russia, and to the communist Chinese-run media, listen. Whenever the globalists launched attacks on your country, on 888, I was against it because it was illegal and it was wrong, okay? And I'm a nationalist. And the globalists are playing our countries off against each other, but it's clear that more and more Russia and China are completely run by the New World Order as well. And, get out of my internal affairs. Nation states are firewalls to tyranny. And I really am upset that you think you can come here and tell us what to do. And I'm going to develop some ideas to really politically punish you for what you're doing. I mean, the communist Chinese are already telling us what movies can be released in movie theaters, a.k.a. the new Red Dawn. They went and re-edited that for almost 2 years. All right, let's go to some phone calls. Let's talk to Ron in New York. Always an interesting caller. It's the Ron I think it is. Go ahead, Ron.
Good afternoon, Alex. Alex, earlier today I watched a press conference by Wayne LaPierre and the NRA. And there's something, and you want to talk about, I guess, a form of psychological warfare in a sense that they struck on, that they keep doing, and I've brought it up before many, many times. Wayne LaPierre called for a national database for the mentally ill. Now,
that's what you called 3 days ago about. No, that's put all the troops and everybody in a database and declare everyone mentally ill. It's pretty bad.
That's right. Now, the funny part about it is they've been speaking rhetoric out of both sides of their mouth on this issue, but of acting consistently in the wrong way on this issue. In 1999 to 2007, they bemoaned the fact that the government has put veterans in that database unfairly. Then in 2007, they support an act which was passed into law, which exacerbated that and made it worse. In fact, they not only supported, they promoted and advanced that. Then they went back to the old saw of how terrible this database is. It's had a detrimental impact on our veterans. As late as 2 weeks ago, they supported a piece of legislation which ultimately failed in the United States Senate to support.
No, I know, and they went to the Supreme Court and sabotaged it with their brief to say that the Second Amendment's not absolute. And they supported the 68 Gun Control Act. They supported the NICS. The NRA, to a great extent, is a loyal opposition. It was created by the federal government, as I know you know. You know that, right? Post-Civil War. So, yes, we're in deep trouble, and that's why the anti-gunners are so arrogant. Let me ask you, what do you think of Cuomo saying he may, in his State of the State in 2 weeks, come out and call for guns to be handed in and the public be given money for them, a gun confiscation.
Well, I'd be more than glad to answer that, but just let me please complete the thing on the NRA.
We're going to go to break. You won't get to finish that, but okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right. The fact of the matter is now today they call for taking a bad situation, expanding it, and putting more groups and more names into it. People got to get down on the NRA, get down on them hard, and hedge their bets by joining the GOA, okay, as a counterbalance. Now to New York State and Governor Cuomo. Governor Cuomo is on a fishing expedition. He's even made it clear, and I believe it's stated in the New York Times, that he's checking the pulse of politicians, Republican politicians in our state capital in Albany. So basically what he's doing is he's trying to test the waters and see if it's safe to go after
No, it says that in the New York Times. He said we're going to try for a confiscation.
Yes, that's what he's definitely looking to do. But he's looking to see if there will be weakness in what we would call the opposition, and there's some suspicion if they're really...
Well, he's also shooting for the moon. He's saying, okay, I didn't get full confiscation. We'll only take half your guns.
You know, that's like saying, I didn't get full murder, we'll only take half your body. You know what I'm saying? It's all or nothing in that proposition. There's no halfway point. They may play word games and play on psychology. They're experts at psychological warfare, obviously, but that's what that would amount to. And by calling it a mandatory buyback, that's also a rhetorical play on words. That's extortion. When you put a gun or threaten somebody or put it to their head and tell them that they must sell their gun or else, that's confiscation. That's extortion. And we shouldn't be using terms because it softens it and it makes them look better. Oh, it's a mandatory buyback. If you don't want to sell something to somebody and he twists your arm behind your back, all right, that's extortion.
I hear you. The world didn't end today so far, but you know my prediction on record. They'll say the Gregorian calendar or something was miscalculated and that the end is really in 3 days or a month or next year. They miscalculated the date. It will now be in 2 years. That way, why should you get involved? Why should you be empowered? The world's going to end anyways. You know, I on air talked about how Christians are manipulated with the rapture. And people are like, well, what, are you not a Christian? No. I am a Christian. It's not that. It's that what you're taught as Christianity isn't what the Bible even really says. There is a rapture clearly in the Bible after Christ returns. And that's what's so frustrating. But regardless, do you think God's going to say he knows you if you don't stand up for what's right? If you just cop out and just say, oh, well, I'm going to get teleported out of here anyways. But look, all that aside, just expand your thought process. Know that you don't know everything. And that the globalists have tried to seriously limit the amount of information you're getting. People are getting so close-minded, so dumbed down. The language is being reduced. So much is happening. And we live in a world of wonderment and just incredible opportunity. And the only reason evil is in charge is because good men and women do nothing. And I know you know that, but I would encourage everybody to take this opportunity this Christmas, that we have right now, time with our families, even if it is a globalist holiday now, we can make it into something good, to give the gift of truth, whether it's a copy of one of my films or a InfoWars magazine subscription that also supports our broadcast, or a InfoWarsNews.com membership. You can get 10 of them for $5.95 a month and then give them as gifts with one username and passcode. All your Christmas shopping done right there, not battling the crazy crowds and all the car wrecks at prisonplanet.tv. And hopefully, put it in a card and give it to somebody and say, hey, check out this documentary, nightly news, alternative media system. And wake them up with all our special reports and films and reporters. It really is an amazing site, prisonplanet.tv. Again, I meant to check it, but I mean, how many hours are left in this day in any time zone? Isn't it only like 12 hours or something? I mean, how long globally is left in any time zone? Because I know the time zone starts out in the Pacific Ocean, So in some areas, hasn't it already gone into the next day? Yeah. In Pacific Samoa and Australia, it's already gone into 2012, the 22nd. And I just can't wait for this to be over without some cult blowing themselves up or a mass shooting or something that the globalists will use to take our liberties. So obviously, if something happens, we'll come live on Infowars.com and the nightly news tonight at 7 o'clock Central with the aftermath. But I just can't wait for this to be gone and past. And I'll obviously shoot a special report video Saturday. And we'll be back Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. 4 to 6 p.m. Central with the Sunday live show. I will be live the day before Christmas Eve. And we have some really special stuff. We have some live shows next week, but also some rebroadcast, but also some other stuff we've edited together that'll be original. That's coming up next week as well. But live this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Central, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.tv.